vestibular senses, and they're going to start to learn these things. And this is really what Cloud taught me, and where a lot that's come about in linguistics and things like that has come more from these teachings, which is quite Toltec and fully a full treatise. It may take many years for somebody to have come up with all what this is. It's very sophisticated. But calmly calling out any pattern to be able to recognise that really allows that to be more healed up via vestibular regulation, more being applied in the emotion. And otherwise, psychopathic sort of conditions could really be only nerve-to-nerve sort of neurotransmitters like dopamine, rather than acetylcholine, which is nerve-to-muscle. And a lot of nerve-to-nerve neurotransmitters can then be interfering with things. So you've got jerky movements, you've got automatic sorts of movements, which is below consciousness, and automatic more. And so the vestibular senses, you stop, start, redirect, and your whole body movement has a sense in direction. Just like to see what I mean is involving vision, and the sound of the words we're using is auditory. To go, get, have, and do is sort of kinesthetic. And so somebody's moving toward interest and pleasure and what's happiness, and moving away from things which they shouldn't. They're using direction this way, but to be able to achieve success, you see. So most everybody is really social, so the more social that somebody is, the greater success they're going to have, and the greater quality of life really they have. We would give people a quality of life index before the training and then afterward, and you could really see how the scores were all boosted long time forever. And improved everybody's quality of life, which you can understand. These are the kinds of things which we should be really teaching people. And otherwise, underdevelopment of the brain really is going on, and it's really cystic fibrosis, which people could learn more about, that sodium chloride transport inside the cellular membrane, which ends up with adenosine triphosphate energy not really being able to be kept up with. And so most people have mitochondrial deficiency and aren't able to actually, build muscle much. So going beyond prefixate patterns of response to be able to survive and getting rid of cortisol, have you ever heard actually how that could actually assist to cause your body to be built more? But whole brain functioning training changes really the way that you strategy and that what you're using. So you've got more of a neural efficiency quotient. Whereas sociopathic sort of generally really might not be able to cry too much because they don't really have any histamine, and histamine not present as neurotransmitters are not too present, and so it's more slow in their thinking, or it's just only repetitious sort of things. But conditions of histamine excess or loss, like we're talking about, really is really where the neurotransmitters in the brain could be released, and you have a proper fitness for all of that. And so a tendency for excitable sort of conditions, or gullibleness, or even impulsiveness really, or even like somebody's acting that way, they really generally might also have inappropriate sort of seductive behaviours and cause others to, be not in their comfort, and then have a very fiery temper when somebody says anything about it. And so it's just sort of a disregard for others, only an attention locked in on themselves, which is, you can see a great melodramatic sort of gestures. They want to be rewarded, but rewarded really wrongfully, and then all of the attention-seekedness sort of thing of a child, really. So most people can be cognizant, and because weakness is, its overreactedness is primary, and more rigid, stiff sorts of feeling is going on, and stiffness of the brain and mind. The body is really the mind's experience of itself, and so where any physical or emotional neglect is by yourself or society, it really puts a great overwhelming feeling of insecurity where security should be, and could be remain more, because it's a craved attention, which really is pain and avoiding feelings of discomfort, and a lot of behaviours go on because of it. Yet we're not only rewardedness for attention seeking was, and where wrongful use of the vestibular system really was conditioned as a child more for attention seeking, and missing was really the inner sense of self approval and things like that. Just sort of really is a thrivedness on drama and unresolved sort of parts. And so somebody could start to look at things, and you could see that where no shame, guilt, or fault, it could be felt as some care of interest, you only got a set of rules that somebody breaks, and they'll be just then not having any consequence about what they do. So it's a very great deep manipulation in the interest of others, sort of. And Murchison syndrome is where somebody sort of really is feigning that they've got this condition, that condition, and then blaming others around them for actually having the condition and things. Yet to make negative stories would have been to only have got attention, and typically it is that somebody's only coming up with what was lost or what was missing or what didn't work, and hardly any attention to things which is more resourceful or excellent. And so it's really abandonment that went on, and loneliness, and a disorder really of not having been able to have perfect detachment, and yet the pattern of selective restrictive violation sort of, it's really deciding not to hear someone or focusing on just on in one something. And for most everybody looking at that, they could really see that there's a bit of a personality disorder. You see, somebody gets locked into things inside their head or on their device, and they can't really hear anything else that's going on around them. But the real, message of our tape today is more that if you take the high ground, you're always really, on the right track. Because if somebody didn't take the high ground, all you're looking at is a lack of self-esteem, and as being the common denominator in the personality disorder, you see. And so then fabricating answers and only answering within a sentence, and fragments and word salad, not any specific detail much. And when pressed by any groomer, you sort of like touching their ear, touching their body, touching their thighs, and things like that. You really got signs of a sociopath. Conceivably sort of really extremely immature, and lacking sympathy, impulse, and being impulsive and controlling. Many times they're really using a bit of a charm to manipulate and that sort of thing, but lack remorse, shame and guilt, like we said. So they have a poor construction of reality, and very much a conflict instigator. They'll make phrases and things which is absolute, and they'll do everything they can to frustrate anybody that's listening more. And so it's very sociopathic, you see, and time where social boundaries are not kept, and not really caring, and just more thrill-seekedness, adrenaline addicted. It's a tendency to withdraw generally from any circumstance, and just to be avoiding always and dissociating to control. But if you clear away conflict, you've really got more whole brain patterning, and when confronted by behaviour, you have these ability about have proper sequencing. You could manage things more and clear up any inconsistency. You could really ask all things which is what's the unexpected, really, and spot various things which is more proper where the emotion might be, but paying attention to the implicit language and explicit and micro expressions we're talking a bit about on the face, you could see what's congruent or contradictory, and ignoring a sociopath really could only raise violence to get more pains, because you could be seeing that it's, ignoring the psychopath. But it's proper to have ways that you could have a strategic non-response, and learn how to do things like that. But otherwise, psychopathic sort of is below them, and that everybody is below them in intelligence, and a timeless condition really is where immaturity was. For a lot of those people, they can't be naked in front of anybody. They're embarrassed or ashamed, and they don't talk about a whole range of things because they're so immature. They anxiety, and they lack expression to really be around proper various subject matter, because they've avoided a lot of circumstance which would really cause them to be more normal. And not have to be selective, restrictive, and they have more control over their organs and their thinking. Otherwise, their organs are thinking have control over them, and they could be riding the appetite of a beast between their legs. So it's sort of gaining functional plasticity more, and those lingual, facial, sort of repetitive sort of micro movements of the face and the hands, which is, or you could see involuntary sort of grimaces and eye blinking, involuntary sort of slapping and stiff sort of jerky movements. And you could see evidence of prion disease, which is really due to dopamine excess and a whole range of monoamine oxidase inhibitor excess in the intestine, and all of that got stuck and not broken down. And yet the product that we have is really good because it could help clear all of this away. And then sessions can easily also cause someone to have more whole brain patterning and things that otherwise behaviours unchecked or cause dopamine to be used up over time. And so signs of limited mind function that you could really see would be always just a bit of inappropriate social behaviour. You've always got empathics that's lacking interpersonal skill. You've got always a lack of proper judgment, and you've got not proper inhibition, and so a lot of impulsiveness just to speak and act. And you've got often like slow but sure, not proper good hygiene, personal and nutritional conditions which cause someone to be triphasic or diphasic instead of monophasic, which is supposed to be. And awareness really overall can be a focus with our obsession, but mostly there often is a focused, obsessed lookingness of adverse neurology and the left hemisphere dysregulation by right hemisphere dominance going on and cause a loss of the outside world as a result of it. So a lot of things become mismatched and signally in the brain, and many of these people have a lot of internal dialogue and are not really connected so much to the outside world. So you can imagine really seeing how somebody could be just stuck in the note of a voice coming from the head rather than the tummy, for instance, and not noticing any of those things, or speaking way past everyone. Not having any volume control. But it's a real reason that these formulas all really have been created, because it really causes nutraceutical balance to come back to be and cause awareness of more of itself and a gained agreement more. So the analog sculpting is where you sculpt all the things around to create the state. And so this state of awareness that we've been talking about is over the top of wakefulness, it's over the top of dreaming, it's over the top of deep sleep. Of course, sleep is just where there's no connection between any memory. Dreaming is really constructing memory and things more. And wakefulness is really 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of information in one period of time, so it's a sort of very limited phenomenon. Yet awareness is over the top of it. So behavioural patterns are social, which is really more about flow, is that's inclusive, is really feeding each other rather than feeding your own self. Everybody who feeds their own self, everyone gets in the way of everyone else in that circumstance, and that's hell in a kitchen. But service really is the first sign of love, and if you could show that, you could really see and get sort of agreement. Otherwise, you've got a lot of hypochondriacal types of going on where bacteria exists, which it doesn't, and all sorts of things, and a neededness of all sorts of rigid behaviours and stuff that doesn't really fit in proper. But you've really got a blockade of others to remain where they are inside and end up being just a lone wolf running around. But the learning that really needs to be is really more about, one, what they could do to be able to avoid conscious objection. And as they put things to more, or you're looking more for agreement and integration between the parts, if somebody's really more compassionate and they've got more eyes open to be receptive, you've got micro-expressions that's minimalised to be none. Otherwise, you've got a lot of micro-expression, half-second ones that really show a deep displayed more condition of maybe loss of happiness, or even disgust, or sequential or simultaneously going on. Upper nose showing disgust and contempt, and flickers of the lips and nose, sadness, disgust and contempt could be shown, and tears, and that just occurred more in 4 blinks per second sort of thing. So the whole body calibration and learning how to be able to read and see what's going on the outside and see how that impacts things that's happening on the inside. You've got really otherwise an inner sadness. You've got eyebrows going up and down. You've got a lot often three families sort of emotional in expression typically going on, which is about loss, disgust or contempt or frustration or anxiety or anger, disgust and contempt, and then degrees of what that is. And they all could be only half-second sort of shorter types of micro-expressions, which could show you the absolute evidence of what the things are that's going on inside. And critiquing parts where also you've got really alongside parts that are a rebel inside stopping that. And so how do you work with these parts? And that's what this work is, you see, because those parts all could be blended. One part is stopping another part from coming out. And so these parts can often not communicate to each other, but yet both parts have got something which is sort of beneficial, though they could be very conflicted and have secondary and negative consequences, you see. And so, I think when anybody looks more at the syntax of behaviour, they learn about this, they could see how negative conditioning could be reframed, could become really good at reframing, and that you could see a sad and angry baby as an adult, and you could see all sorts of tunnelled vision which has gone on. And so these are people who could really benefit from a session, I'm telling you. And short-term hypnotherapy is an induction of whole brain functioning, so you're really sort of gaining the higher ground between the parts, and you learn how to do this. So as you're undoing the tunnel vision more, so that you really afterward a feeling of, my God, I've got installed more positive resource, and you're feeling more integrated, and you've got a structural dimension which is really mindful, and you're really in eye-awareness. You've got not any lack of abundance and limited projection, which could be, but you really focus on what's beneficial. What's mutually beneficial is truth. And so suddenly you've got math that's starting to add up versus a lot of things that it wasn't even considered math, which it should be. And so you're unburdening things, and then what do you do but cause a great dealedness to manage and communication between parts and the engagedness of sort of a core structure. And so that active synesthesia, which can easily be supplied in a session, it's via experiential sort of contemplative types of condition, which is engaging for more also imitative learning in the moment of the session more. And so parts that were all becoming integrated, and sort of somebody just feels really good at the end of the session, but what went on, I'm not sure, but yet you or I we could learn what went on and what was really syntax that was being worked with, so that the tension was all de-escalated. And so anything that was really dreaded could really be healed, and the protectors that were there sort of could no longer have to be polarized rebels against the feeling of guilt, which is wise that one could feel these feelings. Otherwise, there's no consequence of anything. Yet to hate where someone is and have a rebel and have a critical part and have something that suggests ever more escalation, and you've got all these parts and only tension existing between them, and yet what goes on where that tension is released and the head and the heart more are unified, and you're eliciting values really which is more about caring and clearing away things which is not natural, but otherwise everybody's practicing sort of like of language, and you better do this now, otherwise you're going to get in trouble and bugger you. I mean, it's that's entertainment and sort of not any integratedness of any parts much, but just really a clip type of language, and it's encountering friction non-stop always and lacking of any curiosity or willingness to embrace emotion. And so where somebody has much longer sensitivity to really care for and have ongoing care, you're really loving this more and lovable. I mean, this is really the beloved more in life. And yet what does it really mean to have power? coming back full circle, isn't this your ability, your mind, to be able to cause things to get done around us? And isn't this engaging more good support structure and inquiry and readiness to have ease of ability to restore in a conflict, and it doesn't exist, and so you're achieving alignment more, and you've got these goals, and that's very unique, and you've got many parts which all can be isolated and then integrated. And often it's sort of more cutting edge that you could take advantage of the destiny where this is, and you could own your own inner conflict and clear it away. And so by using whole brain functioning practical technique and doing sessions and learning behavioural change work, somebody could really help where coaching is. And so now you're looking at reading behavioural manifestations of somebody's internal response, and that you're able to no longer be sabotaged by things because you could pace the things which is there. Otherwise, there's often a fear of failure or even a fear of success, because what am I going to do after I have success? So it's interesting, isn't it? But it's a reason why somebody might want to do something, but it never ever gets done because they've got parts that actually is conflicted. And this is something which in whole brain functioning somebody could be really good at, really learning how to work where the parts are. And that's so that you've really got the path of least resistance rather than most, and you're really bringing the parts together and you're uniting it because you've really always got a bit of a higher ground where things are, Lukey. Yeah. Little bits of what is as a piece of the whole and unification to reunite whatever is as looking at a part, but it only could fit into the whole. And so something, it's just really what's investigative where you are, which is a strategy which you should have, which is a common value, which is really to be able to be more informed, and where we all should be informed, which we wisely should be. And then voice really comes from us as we're the people versus lower down, and coming into senior executive service, far down the stream, isn't ever anything coming from us. And so you and I, we need to really take positive, adaptive conditioning to take hold of things ourselves and form administrative councils that fit above the legislative assembly where everything is, and have 66 of these or more, and start to clear things up. Each one of them can work, you see, but otherwise there's really, where's the finding of some positive adaptive condition, and everything is only just a bulldoze divide, and shouldn't it be just a path of least resistance? So and taking the higher ground, isn't it that everybody really has laughter? But what happens when somebody is laughing at you? And isn't it that you could be inclusive about that and laugh as well? All it really is a positive about using don't work, can't you, try but must only, and being positive inside, and then it's going to work for you. But otherwise, maybe those words should be left alone until something could be able to be positive inside, and you've gained room, and so that you've dissipated whatever it would be that's no longer walked off, and it doesn't have to be because nothing exists there to be walked off anymore. And so you really reunited more the parts, and you've avoided conscious objection where you are because you've really got style and way to do that. You could be using modal operators as a possibility, like I wonder if it may be, and it's certain that the pen is mightier than the sword. And who's first quick smart to go grovel, and they reckon they've got good strength of grovel, is showing they've got a good strength of stupidity instead on us. And so it's really an avoided conscious objection where somebody is more, and because you're finding ways to resolve conflict, and you're welcoming more the parts that you're wanting to integrate. And so as you're not isolating anything, but you're making things clean by not having overlay anything. And so, you know, if somebody was isolated in the world like happened and they didn't know the war had finished, and they lived there for 30 more years, but they were isolated and never knew the outside world, and there was no alterations that ever could have come along. So over 30 years, they were very loyal, kept their uniform, everybody was ready, and it was only that a high-ranking soldier would have had to come along to clear up the mess there and welcome them home, and gradually they could be told, of course, that they lost the war or whatever. and but they have to be treated as heroes and this sort of thing. And now it could be integrated back into society. But ever more fulfilledness is like you're talking, and a bonus is where will is, and where will is directed at that's needed. It really could be disciplined and have some resistance to that. And yet if you don't ignore that but focus on what's positive and integrate all the parts, which in this metaphor we just talked about is really a more learnedness for you or I, more to grow and have recognizedness and to use these things more as a muscle. And so you've got otherwise a conflicted communication often going on, and somebody should really learn about like what's congruent and not be having sequential and simultaneous types of incongruencies sort of going on. You really should be seeking positive adaptive condition to integrate and to future pace a new movement experience more, and you're wiring in this through whole brain functioning synesthesia technique. And to do that, you're separating the parts to integrate them, and you're finding what the positive adaptive reason is behind this, and each part there you're correcting it, and then you're bringing things together like you could just bring your hands together, building one in the air and the other, and slowly bringing things together as a synesthesia technique, you see. So I'm giving a bit of insight into how it could be possible to use non-verbal and verbal language and things like this, but it's really great learning that people could have to be able to have focus on agreement and this sort of thing. But anyway, I think that's pretty good, what we've done today, mate. Yeah. I reckon there's things which we could talk about coming up, but I know we'll get to, and that's the different types of sort of learning. There's sequential types of learning. There's gestalt sorts of learning. You really know that what is a gestalt process more, and more that the whole always, which is there in the gestalt, is greater than the sum of the parts. But shouldn't it be that people could learn how to motivate and how to get valid goal setting and have more well-formedness in what you do? But change really does involve changing cognitive biases, and the unconscious mind is where more your unlimited ability is. And so what is your personal power? And when you've got a psychosoma balance, you've really got a whole range of things like silica, sulfur. You've got lots of micronutrient things, because life begets life and dead begets dead. But decision making and strategy, it all does involve neurotransmitters, and it involves your good health and everything, and clearing away learned helplessness. So anyway, I think that when we come back to talk a bit more, maybe we would talk a bit more about these things. But you basically really we've been today talking a bit about how someone could apply whole brain functioning direction more in the way that they use their whole body movement sense, how that's engaged in language. So words like on, off, up, down, in, out, forward, back, turning are words that involve whole body movement. And then how integrated are things, and is it that you're moving toward what's pleasurable versus pain? Are you moving away from pain, or are you moving away from pleasure? You see? Yes? Using direction in the wrong way. So when somebody gets all this sorted out, honest to God, you're clearing up a lot of personality disorder, basically.
Wow. It's all together, and by acting the right way, it also changes the...
It's analog sculpting. Yes.
Okay.
So, for instance, an inner smile, undetectable much, it is going to cause coolness more of your brain.
Okay.
Putting the shoulders back and the heart out, it is going to cause you to feel pride. Yeah.
I was working with a trainer today on that, to open up the upper rib cage. I think he said it was pinched. It just reminded me of the pulling the shoulders back, and
Yeah, the spine should be sort of inside the body. You'll notice that as people get older, or whatever, decrepit, the spine comes to be outside the body, and the ribs hang off it, and it's no longer inside the body. It's supposed to be. It becomes more and more on the outside of the body, and it's all this head forward stuff that people do, and then they have pillows, and they're not there. Their spine is no longer straight, so you've got a cerebral spinal pump at the bottom of the base of the spine, and that cerebral spinal fluid has to flow up the spinal, and it's replaced every 7 hours or so, 7.5 hours, and you've got 2 ventricles up in the top of your head, which is filled with this fluid and is producing it. And so without the sacral pump in the bottom, so for instance, most people are very rounded backed. They don't have any tension in the stomach to have muscle there. They sit blown out with the stomach blown out, and they sit with a rounded back, blown out, and hunched shoulders. And to do that, your head becomes so far forward that you have to have huge sternomastoid muscles to hold your head up. But eventually that all causes, atlas not to be in a proper stead. And that atlas then can cause the autonomic nervous system not to function properly, parasympathetic and sympathetic. It can put a brake over it. The vagalotéric nervous system can do that. And the atlas can do that by it not having its proper alignment. Yeah.
I was just thinking today, actually, about the head forward thing with the hallucinating, right?
Yeah, because head forward causes people to hallucinate a lot. Yeah, definitely. And a spinal alignment doesn't let proper, cerebral spinal fluid flow like it should. And it's your pelvic area which actually is that pump. It pumps things up the spine. It can, it cause, cleanness and detoxification, that fluid only ever is replaced, like I said, every 7.5 hours. But if you're not sitting proper, or you don't have the pump at the top of the palate working, you don't have pineal and pituitary gland secretions working either. You do as the spine is in alignment, okay? Yeah.
These, on a spectrum, they're on these behaviors, like, part of a spectrum?
Is what part of the spectrum, mate?
So let's see. You had a list of different behaviors, including micro expressions and.
Yes, I see. Oh, micro expressions. Yes, it's amazing because you can see a lot of things going on which most people aren't looking at. But if you do, then you could really see a hell of a lot more going on. You're able to read everything more. You see. So otherwise, it's really not easy to be able to guess, but you really could see things going on more. What the family of sort of emotions, got 15 different emotions, and 3 or 4 could be being expressed sequentially or simultaneously, you see. Yeah. And so these micro expressions all are where conflictedness is, because when somebody's in an integrated state, you really don't see any of that at all.
Amazing. So, excuse me for assuming, I guess this is like a module of reading specific techniques of reading the...
Yeah, our Jubb's instrument, which teaches people how to be able to see whole brain functioning and what degree that somebody is living in whole brain patterning. It causes you to be able to, after you've read the instrument, understand it, you can start to look at your own behaviour and move your own behaviour more toward whole brain functioning itself. So you've got first component of the instrument really relates to how associated you are, how do you show up. And so basically everybody gets a bit of a score anyway, when you show up. But why shouldn't you show up so good? Because like we started out to say, which who's to know if you recorded it, people remember you. It's in the first 7 seconds they're going to remember everything, and if they like you, that's it. You see, you've done something to like them. Maybe you looked at them through your left eye and you looked into their left eye, so you knew how to look at people. But most people, if I said, hey, do you know that eye contact is important? Most people put their hand up. Oh, good, yes. And now, do you know how to have eye contact? Put your hand up. And then most people don't put their hand up. So there's a lot of things which really you and I, well, we could be better because, and it's non-verbal. Who has any education in non-verbal? It's 90% of everything that's going on, and that's in vision and in auditory and in kinesthetic sort of motor sequencing types of feeling and things. And so how the senses are being used, and are they? Or is it just that somebody's in a stuck state, so they're only ever in a kinesthetic state, not really accessing or exiting information in auditory or vision? But more whole brain patternedness is coming from interest and pleasure, and happiness stimulate whole brain functioning, and aversion causes limited mind function, you see, yeah? And so you'll notice that when somebody's in a averse state, if they can't get out of that, every single thing that is, it's only associated, it's all connected with the don't, won't, can't, should, try, but, must, only. Everything's coming in from an aversion. All their behaviour is modulated by a flexor, not an extensor muscle. And most people looking at it, they will straight away tell you that they don't want to go in there because why? Well, it's got too much akimbo going on. And so you've got a lot of lone wolves. Couldn't you practice actually what's more social though? Yes, you can. You could learn this, you see? Yeah? So that's what our show's been about today, I say.
I'm really sorry if it's necessary. I don't know what you would want to do if that first half hour we need to get.
Oh, that's okay. We'll do things again or anything. It's all good. Yeah, that's okay, mate. Check it out and see what you've got. How good is that? Fantastic, mate. Don't worry about that. We can go over it for sure. Everything that which is, like we said in the piece that you've recorded, lots of things is within it, and the whole more is in the part, and the part is in the whole. Yeah. Yeah. So it's all good, mate.
Amazing.
All right. Okay, well, love you, mate. We'll catch up to each other the next show. We'll find out what we need to, if we need to go over something or not. Love you, mate.
Thank you so much. Love you.
Love you, mate. Love you, mate. Come on.
Have a great night.